to generate more consistent profits, a more consistent bottom line, healthy bottom line. Everybody was thinking we need to generate more sales. So the question is to you, how much revenue do you need to reach a healthy or comfortable bottom line, healthy net profit for you? And what is that number? Not just top line, but what is that bottom line number you're looking to reach? We've had clients that only made $250,000 a year in revenue. It had a bottom line, a net profit of 15% of revenue, right? So you're looking at about 35 to 40K I'm sorry, 35 to 40K in net profit. This is after they pay themselves and all that. We've had clients that were doing $5 million in revenue, but lost a lot of money. Showed clearly the revenue number does not dictate how much you have at the bottom.
Well, and I think we get so asphyxiated on the revenue that we don't think of the bottom line.
Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hello, Thriving in Tandem family. Welcome to this week's episode.
Hi, you guys.
We're going to talk about the 5 hidden business growth traps that are costing you time away from your spouse, your kids, and the things that you love to do. And it's also costing you money too. So,
ooh, that's a big one when it hits you in the pocketbook.
So who doesn't want to get more of both, time and money? So we're going to talk about the 5 hidden business growth traps, and there's going to be things that maybe you haven't heard, or maybe you've probably heard bits and pieces of each of these, but not in like one kind of episode like this. And they're not like the typical, marketing issues and sales issues and all that kind of operational issues and all that, but it's really more kind of attacks maybe the more the mindset in a little bit. And this is part from our own experience, personal experience, as well as obviously we consult with family businesses just like you. And so these are just some of the common things we've seen.
And we just want you to know you're not alone.
Yeah. And so take some notes and address these 5 issues. Now you may not have fallen into the traps of all 5 of these, but there's probably at least one where you might say, hey, maybe I need to look at this thing a little bit differently. So ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first one, most common one, is focusing on more sales. So you might be asking yourself, how can focusing on more sales hinder my business from growth? Well, because it's not about the top line, it's all about the bottom line. So it doesn't matter how much money you bring in sales and revenue. If you don't keep anything at the end of the day, it's going to be very hard to grow, right?
And I don't think people really realize this one. They just think, they think that's the answer for everything.
Yeah. And so, when I first started consulting, it was primarily in marketing because that's my background. And everyone always obviously hired me because they wanted more sales, right? But as I got to look at the numbers and the financials and all that, and also dealing with different sizes of business from $250 million in revenue to up to $100 million in revenue, everyone was saying the same thing. To generate more consistent profits, a more consistent bottom line, healthy bottom line, everybody was thinking we need to generate more sales. So the question is to you, how much revenue do you need to reach a healthy or comfortable bottom line, healthy net profit for you? And what is that number? Not just top line, but what is that bottom line number you're looking to reach?
The number most people don't look at, right? Or think.
Yeah. We just think, oh, we'll have enough. Is it $250K in revenue? Is it $700K? Is it $5 million a year revenue? And, it's interesting. We've helped all of these. And what's interesting is we've had clients that only made $250,000 a year in revenue. It had a bottom line, a net profit of 15% of revenue, right? So you're looking at about 35 to 40K in 35 to 40K in net profit. This is after they pay themselves and all that. We've had clients that were doing $5 million in revenue, but lost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so doesn't that not make sense? Don't you think, right? Again, more sales means more profits. But just these 2 examples that we have direct experience with show clearly the revenue number does not dictate how much you have at the bottom.
Well, and I think we get so asphyxiated on the revenue that we don't think of the bottom line.
Yeah. And so you can outspend your earnings, right? If your expenses are more than your revenue, then obviously that's why you lose money, right?
Mhm.
I mean, everybody knows that in principle. But what happens is we don't track that, we don't maintain that. We don't focus on how much margin are we with every piece or every sale, are we making enough of a profit margin, let's say growth profit margin, before even paying all the operational and fixed expenses? Are we making enough to pay our operational expense, our owner's salary, plus have left over? So margin, making sure you have enough margin. If with every sales transaction, we may need to make sure we have enough profit margin with every sale to be able to pay our fixed operating expenses plus our salary plus keep about a 15% net. Is it 50% margin? Is it 60% margin? I mean, that's, you might need some help with this, but anyways, all to say is margin is more important than revenue.
Mhm. And you love doing that part, and we also talk about that in our book,
Yep.
Thriving in Tandem,
Yeah. So
The
chapter 8.
Married Entrepreneur Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance.
Yep. So that's grab a copy of that, and that's chapter 8. So that's number one. That is hidden growth trap. Number one is always thinking sales is the answer. Number
Because we've had clients, kid you not, that thought that was the answer, and they were bringing in more and more people, sales, and their profit was going lower and lower and lower. They were going more in the hole, but they didn't realize it.
Yeah, so it is possible to outspend your earnings. So really get into the accounting and control your costs. Look at your expenses, seeing what needs to be cut, seeing what maybe you're overspending on. Maybe even it's like your labor costs is a very common one, especially like in restaurants. They may be spending more money on labor than they can afford because they don't have good workflows in the kitchen into the front of the house, that kind of stuff where we're overstaffing, right?
Mhm.
So how do we get more done in less time? So anyways, those are areas you need to really look at your expenses too. And also pricing. We talk about that quite a bit. Look at some of the past podcast episodes talking about pricing. So all that is in play. And in fact, this will help you. If you go to our website, there's the show notes. In the show notes, there's a link to an assessment to see how you're doing in your marriage and your business. How are you maintaining great work-life balance? And of course, in the business, these are one of the issues that the assessment covers is how are you maintaining healthy margins? And it'll give you some solutions too. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes. Number two is maintaining control.
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Maintaining control. So for the typical founder business, you started either by yourself or maybe with a small team. And so naturally you're wearing a lot of hats, right? But even as you grow, maybe you hire more people, that you're still maintaining more control. Or even if you're delegating tasks, you're micromanaging, you're looking over people's shoulders, you're even correcting mistakes, you're even redoing things.
Mhm.
And have the mentality of no one can do it as good as me. So either you're fixing something or you just do it instead of delegating.
So you're not working in your zone of genius. You're just spending all your time looking after somebody else, micromanaging, and that gets very exhausting. And I think too, if you're working for a micromanager, it's really tough
Yeah.
because we want some leeway to be able to be creative, make some decisions, and to be trusted, if nothing else.
Yeah. And so you may think I'm not a micromanager.
Yeah, we all say that in small businesses.
And to be honest, there's very few micromanagers that have admitted they're micromanagers. Every
Mhm.
once in a while, I'll come across one, but you might want to take some inventories. Like, okay, if you're wearing multiple hats, if you're you know afraid to hire somebody because you have that no one can do it as good as me mentality, then you're control. You're being controlling. You're going to have a hard time delegating tasks. And as Kaylee was saying, really allowing the people that you hire that you think are good and skilled at that task to do it, because they may have a different approach to doing it. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing.
Mhm.
It's just different than you.
Well, and we hear people say all the time, "Oh my gosh, we have the best staff." But they don't utilize them, you know what I mean? They're going and micromanaging around them, and I'm like, "Well, you brag about them, let them shine."
Yeah, and so that's a common issue is micromanaging, a lot of allowing bring in skilled people at those tasks, because let's face it, we're not good at everything,
Mm.
right? We may be good at a lot of things, but we're not great at everything, right? And so as Kaylee was alluding to, focus on your zone of genius, the things that you're great at and brings you life, and allow other people that are really great at those other tasks that you're only good at I mean, why spend time on tasks that you're good at when there's people that are great at it?
Hmm.
And let them do it and let them shine. Even when we create, I always talk about creating SOPs or standard operating procedures. Um, as a business owner, you can create maybe the starting point or the outline for SOPs for certain tasks, but ultimately you want to bring somebody on who's really good at those tasks and have them really finalize and fine tune those SOPs. So let the people that are actually going to be doing it really develop, having a really big hand in developing those SOPs.
And let them take some responsibility because there's nothing better than feeling like we have a purpose
Yeah,
and what we're doing is important. Because I think that makes us all feel good.
absolutely. Number 3 is not listening to outside counsel. Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. Okay, because you heard this term, right? Are you a Lone Ranger? Well, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. And while the Lone Ranger took the lead many times, but Tonto, every once in a while, he adds this little just air of wisdom to the Lone Ranger. And it probably saved his butt a lot of times during the show, right? So
Mhm.
even a Lone Ranger has a Tonto. So who's your Tonto? Who's the person you listen to that you can value their input? And since this is the Thriving in Tandem podcast, you are married, most likely. So you already have a built-in Tonto with your spouse. And even if they're not working in the business, they have some insights into your business that you don't see. I mean,
Mhm.
our spouse, Kaylee, has my blind spot or knows my blind spots, right? And I know hers. And so we're different. We have some similarities in our gift and our skills, but we also have a lot of differences. And it's in those differences we can see each other's blind spots. And what happens is, especially if you're talking about married business owners, is we discount what our spouse says because, oh, you're not working the business, you don't understand, or
Mhm.
you don't understand what I'm dealing with as the CEO, whatever the case may be, right? You're going to have those kind of conversations in your head and sometimes to your spouse, which I don't recommend saying that. But you got to understand that we all have blind spots and you want to have good counsel and trusted counsel around you that can point those things out. And that can not only save you from making big mistakes, but can help you take the next step in growth. Like they're probably saying, hey, you're too controlling. Right?
Which sometimes these things can be hard to hear and hard to say. But you know what? It's always good to get a different perspective. And sometimes you just need time to think about things, I think, too. Like can catch someone off guard and you're like, what? What do you mean I'm controlling? But later, hopefully you can think about it and maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe there's not.
Yeah. So definitely, your spouse is one, and then get, whether it's a coach, a consultant, a mentor, somebody outside the organization to really speak into your life. And so a lot of times, like coaches aren't necessarily experts in your business, but what coaches are good at is just asking good questions to help you really start to verbalize your thoughts. And in those, divulging of your thoughts will probably what usually comes solutions. So sometimes it's not just about hiring a subject matter expert, but someone that just can come alongside to you and just talk it out.
Hmm.
Because every business owner always has some challenges to deal with, right? And you don't want to try and figure it all on yourself. That's just a recipe for disaster. And so if you're primarily making decisions on your own and not trusting other people to speak into that, then obviously that's going to be a big growth hindering factor.
Hmm. Well, and I think too, if you hire people, a lot of times you can grow a lot faster as well too, because there's only so many things that we know.
Yeah.
We can't be an expert in everything.
And what we've known, and if you are working with your spouse, what we've seen is that that's probably one of the number one growth killing factors is the two being able to come together and making decisions.
Hmm.
Now, does that mean that your business can't grow even if you're not quite on the same page? That doesn't necessarily mean that, but you're probably not growing well. There's a lot of stress going on, right? So even though the top line is growing, that when you're not in agreement on things and you're doing things that your spouse doesn't agree with and, vice versa, that most likely there's just a lot of stress.
Hmm.
So even though you may be hitting your numbers and all that, but when there's a lot of stress involved, that's not healthy, right? We want you to grow in a healthy manner where not only is your top line growing, your bottom line's growing, but you're also growing and thriving together as a couple,
Hmm.
as a family, right? So that's number 3, doing it alone. The fourth one is protecting those sacred cows, having a sacred cow. And what does that mean? Here's the kind of mentality I've heard. This is one of my first consulting clients. Whenever we came up with solutions, potential solutions, the response was, we can't do that. This is how we've done it for 40 years. So they had the way of doing business, whether it's marketing, operations, you name it. And they had these sacred cows that you couldn't touch.
Mhm.
That's the kiss of death because, especially being in business for 40 years, things change. I mean, just technology in itself changes, right? And the way of doing business or the tools that are out there, those change, right? They get improved. But literally, they didn't have something as simple as voicemail. So what happened was, we did these test calls to the office and just to test their customer service. And actually, that's not what we did. It was actually we had called back some people that had called the office because we had a tracking phone number that we're using in the marketing. We had a specific phone number that we're using so we can track people. And we called them back to say, how was the service? Kid you not, there was a number of them that said the phone just rang and rang and rang and nobody picked up. And so we asked the owners, like, how come nobody answers? And they say, oh, well, if the assistant, the front desk person, if she's on a break or she has to go to the bathroom, basically when she leaves the desk, it just rings.
So it all fell on one person's
Yeah.
responsibility.
And then we asked, well, don't you have voicemail? Oh, no. We don't have voicemail. Like, why not? Well, that's not how we've done it for 40 years. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Now you can laugh at this, right? Like for all of us listening, probably, I'm sure you're like, well, our phones now come with voicemail, right? This is years ago when I started. And so, our cell phones now obviously comes with voicemail. And so that's kind of a given these days. But, we
But you
all,
still need somebody to answer it.
yeah. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, and I certainly have these too, right? We have sacred cows. There's certain things we don't touch. We don't do. If Kaylee says, "Oh, let's do something different," and I might have this protected sacred cow because, well, this is how we do it. I'm comfortable doing it this way. And when you're protecting that closely, it's kind of like the controlling issue we talked about earlier. It's another layer of control, right? Is not controlling tasks, but this is just controlling ways of doing business and adopting new technology. I mean, AI right now is the new thing, and they're surprised so many people not using it, at least some of it, right?
Well, a lot of them are resistant.
A lot of them are resistant, and I can tell you right now, it's saving me a ton of time in a lot of different areas in our business, whether it's market research, it's writing our some of our copy.
All that being said, it's not doing all that for you.
Yeah.
It's just doing the research part of it.
Yeah, the research,
You're still
helping
writing
all the strategies. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, so I can focus more on the higher level stuff. So let's take strategies for clients, right? It gives me enough of a foundation that it basically kind of clears my head of all the clutter that's in my head. These are some of the things I want to do, yada yada. But it helps me organize. So I just feed chat some of the stuff I'm dealing with. Here's some data, here's some thoughts, whatever, and it helps me organize some of my thoughts so that I can think more clearly about what is the right way to go about the strategy. Right?
So that does not mean he's doing chat GPT and pulling up all this stuff and then taking all that to the client. No, that's not what he's saying.
Yeah, but it does a lot of heavy lifting, helps me get organized a lot faster than it used to. And so saving me a lot of time. So anyways, for some of you, that might be a sacred cow that we just keep doing things the same way. We don't touch AI to use it, or we don't delve into it a little bit more to see how, let me tell you one thing, I'm working on a new major project right now. And as we're looking at their digital marketing footprint, one thing we look at our website is search engine optimization. How many of those keywords, people that are searching on Google or Bing or whatever, we want to make sure that our clients' websites gets ranked high, the top 1 or 2, 3 in the search, right? Now, because of AI, there's a such thing, not just SEO, search engine optimization, but now there's AEO, AI basically engine optimization, because people are going to AI and chat and Claude and all these different, platforms to look for answers now. They're gravitating a little way from search engines to AI. And so you want the AIs to be able to see your website as a relevant thought leader.
Yeah, and recognizing you want to be at the top of that list.
So that they would recommend you, because I was looking at this. I was doing some research recently, and it was actually for your computer.
Oh.
Your laptop, your new laptop. And I was saying, what's the top 3 best value? And this is what I'm looking for, yada, yada, yada. And it came up with these 3 laptops, and it gives it a make and model number, yada, yada. But then it gave me links to the actual sites to purchase it from. because it gave me even price breakdowns. And I was like, oh, so it actually gave me links, which that was like the first time I've seen that. So it actually gave me links to the website where that laptop I could purchase those laptops. So before it was just more of exchange of information. Now they're looking for the source and providing links to the source. So as a business, depending on the type of business you have, especially for us as consultants and coaches, if people are looking for how to work with your spouse on AI, we want to come up as a source, right? And so I'm rethinking a little bit of that. So that's a little bit of rabbit trail. But anyways, all to say is, there's all these areas of opportunity, and if we have these sacred cows, we're going to lose out. And so let's not do that. Let's not have, in fact, this year, right? I remember talking to you, honey, about, it's our 8th year in business. We should just relook at everything. Let's not have any, I even use the term, let's not have any sacred cows. I want to make sure go into this eyes wide open. Let's look at every potential alternative and potential solution of how we move our business forward.
Well, and I think change can be good, even though I know a lot of us humans are resistant to it, and it could be uncomfortable, but change can be a really good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Change is necessary, and it even gives you a little bit of life. I mean,
And if we don't change, everything around us is going to change. So then eventually we'll have to change.
yeah, you might get forced to, right? Like when COVID happened, people didn't want to have their employees do, work virtually, and didn't want to do Zoom calls because they want to be in person. I get that. I mean, definitely in-person meetings are definitely more beneficial than Zoom, but sometimes taking advantage of technology helps save a little bit of time. And I remember talking to clients even before COVID about, hey, you might consider having some of these tasks or some of these positions, maybe even have them work virtually. And because it cuts some costs and all that. And then, of course, there's resistance. And then next thing you know, March 2020, companies are forced to do this virtually. And so, yeah, if you don't change, sometimes the change is going to just force themselves upon you. And so you might also be in front of the curve because then you won't have to scramble like a lot of these businesses were doing.
Well, yeah, because then you're ready as opposed to, oh my gosh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm behind.
Exactly. So number 5, the 5th growth killer that's costing you time and money. It's just the word I can't. I even said it in the sacred cow example. We can't do this because this is how we've done it for 40 years.
That's exactly what the client said too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's why I use this. I still remember that. That was what
He said that about everything though.
Yeah, exactly. They had sacred cows and they said, I can't. So, again, going back to that example, because they said I can't, they didn't. Or even when they reluctantly went along with our solution, they never really give it a fair shake. They kind of self-sabotage. They kind of sabotage the strategy. And then they just blamed us for everything, right? So I fired them and fired a client. But anyways, the minute you say I can, you have that pessimistic attitude, then of course you won't, right? And even if you reluctantly, like our client did, move forward with a potential solution that, whether it's your spouse says or your another coach or consultant or someone even internally on your team, when you just have that pessimistic attitude and move forward, I mean, you're going to sabotage it and you're not going to give your best foot forward. And so be open to everything. So whether you say I can't or I can, you definitely are going to probably achieve that.
Well, when you said I can't, my whole body just kind of tensed up. And then if I say I can't, like you said, I'm not going to be all in on it. I'll be like, I'll just kind of haphazard do it because somebody else wants me to do it or whatever. And I don't think I can. So why even try?
Yeah. So, yeah. So anyways, watch your words because words do matter and they will drive your actions, right? Because the words you speak are typically already in your mind. It's in your mind. That's a part of your mindset anyway. And so, of course, that's going to drive your actions.
Well, yeah, because if you say you can't, then it's the whole mindset. But as entrepreneurs, don't we want to be like the solution solvers and be like, well, there might not be a solution to that, but why can't I come up with it?
Yeah. In fact, I mean, that's kind of how you started as a business. You're providing a solution to somebody else's problems. So when you're looking at your own business and you're seeing some of the issues that your business is facing, be solution oriented.
I mean,
and
just
be open.
Look at the iPhone. They could have said, oh, I can't do that. It's never been done. It's impossible. We don't know how to do it. It would have never happened. Or somebody else would have done it. But now, look, when it came out, people were like, oh my gosh, we never thought this was possible. This is fabulous. I can't believe all the things it can do.
Yeah, a phone with just one button, of course, was looked as impossible, and Steve Jobs really drove that because obviously he had a lot of pushback from his team, his engineers, and all that. But he said, "No, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're gonna do." In fact, he's trying to get a phone that had no buttons. But so just to have it just a one button, right, is simply amazing. And so, absolutely, your attitude is going to drive your actions. And so, definitely put the word "I can't" out of your vocabulary, especially when you're in brainstorming mode, because and we get into this once in a while too. We get into brainstorming mode and we start picking everything apart,
Hmm.
right? And we never really just throw everything on the wall and then start looking, see what's possible.
Well, and sometimes I'll do that. Like I'll come up with reasons why it won't work, but then that kind of just kills the whole energy.
Kills
Like
the vibe.
then you're like, I don't want to do this either. I guess that's not going to work. But you know what? As I said, we're supposed to be the innovators. So let's come up with ideas and figure out how we can make it work.
Yeah. So we'll end with that is get a better attitude. You can do it. I mean, you've gotten this
Yes, you
far
can.
in the business, so certainly you can take the next level. But in order to get to the next level of growth in your business, you definitely have to make sure you have a very open mindset. No have sacred cows, have a can-do attitude, right? You've heard these terms a lot. And most of all, it's not about just growing for growth's sake, but grow in a way that's healthy. So it's healthy for the business, it's healthy for you as
Healthy for the
business owners,
family.
healthy for you and your marriage, healthy for the family. Yes, absolutely. Growing healthily in the business isn't just about how the business is doing.
Mhm.
It's about how you're doing. It's about how your marriage is doing. So grow in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think you said it good, honey. It's not just about the numbers.
Yeah. So we want you to thrive in tandem because that's, again, what this podcast is about, right?
Yes, it is.
So if this
And you
episode,
can do it. We believe in you.
yeah, so if this episode has touched you, please share this with another married entrepreneur who needs to hear this. And we would love a review. So remember, subscribe and leave a review. Love to hear from you. And until next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.